Okay, welcome back. This lecture we're going to be talking about the design issues related to Unit 1, and that's going to be gesture, mark making, and expression, but also it's going to be involve a little digression, I guess, in a way, talking about the difference between lines and marks, talking about what are lines and what are marks. And like in the previous lectures, as you see, the very first title page is going to kind of give you an outline of how this lecture goes. So we're going to get right started on talking about what is gestural and what is expression, and talk about how mark making relates to what is gestural and what is expression, and whether by studying lines and marks can we kind of have a way to start to understand the language of mark making and of gesture, and get a sense of, when we talk about expression, what we mean, what is being expressed. Okay, so let's start first with this idea of gesturalness and expressiveness, and as this slide says, you know, like when the cave paintings in Lascaux, or well, actually in Altamira first, then later in Lascaux, were discovered, people were kind of amazed in a way by the type of drawing, the loose and gestural drawing, but yet still kind of naturalistic, that they saw in these cave paintings, and they seemed to the people at the time very modern, and they seemed surprising, and people were even skeptical that they possibly could have been made by Paleolithic people. And that raises interesting questions of, like, why is gesture interesting to people? Why is it hard? You would think that being loose and gestural would be the easiest possible thing to do, but it is and it isn't. And gesture is in some ways just making sure that when you make a mark, that you're doing it in a way that your body is being expressive and gestural, and that then the mark is a direct expression of that mark. But if you look at a drawing like Ellsworth Kelly, that's also a very expressive mark, but it's not entirely clear how he held his body. There's the control in it makes the communication of the body movement less clear in a way. So, and as a drawing teacher, I've often found that it is surprisingly challenging sometimes to convince students to draw really loosely and quickly. And this is important for them because it helps them to see more clearly and to see the whole and to not have any literal hang-ups. But it is often a problem where they don't want to give up the control that they've already earned. So, as we talked about before, I think an artist like Willem de Kooning is a great example of gestural and expressive mark making, and we can kind of look at his work as well as look at this piece by Frank Arabach and kind of think about how this kind of means of making a painting or making an image that's very loose and expressive, where the materials seem to be a direct reflection of the energy and the gesture of the body making it. What does that communicate? Does it communicate different things in different ways? Like comparing the two different de Koonings, is the difference in what they communicate just because the palette's different, or is there also something about the mark making system slightly different that gives the painting clam diggers a more slow and maybe more languorous kind of feel to it, and a softer and less aggressive kind of feel? Well, I think to understand this further, what we have to do is we have to really think about what is a line and what is a mark, and what are the differences between lines and marks. And, well, let's go back just for a second. In class, when I do this lecture, what I would do is I would pause here, and I'd ask everyone to stop and think for a bit, and to throw out some answers of, like, what is a line, and how do we describe lines, what are ways that lines are different, and how are marks different. And we'd often come up with sometimes longer lists, and we get lists kind of like this. And one of the things that's interesting to me about this is that between these two lists, you can see that there are many things that are similar, like that one of the ways we can think about the difference between lines is regular and irregular. Very regular lines can be very geometric, but they can be as irregular and uncontrolled as you could possibly imagine. But marks can be described that same way. But then other things between these two lists are different. Sometimes, like the difference between curved and angled is not a big deal with marks. And so here are some of my kind of basic definitions of what is a mark and how is a mark different from a line. To me, a mark is kind of an interesting topic because in terms of the art elements usually include line, shape, color, value. They almost always exclude mark. But mark in some ways is like the most fundamental art element, or I like to describe it almost as like it's it's a subatomic particle. It's a quark in the physics of art making. On these definitions also, I think it's really important to pay attention to some of the things that line does, like how do lines create shape and how do lines create value. We will be talking more about these things in a little bit, but for right now we're just going to pause so I can then load up the next unit. Hold on a second. Where is my cursor? There it is.